Hey folks, John Bowden, Rock History Music. I'm broadcasting from the studio today. I'm usually upstairs on the third floor doing my thing, but right now we have we have a NAS right over here. There's this big mofo thing that's recording all our interviews. We're trying to save our interviews to make sure that they're safe and that they're all in one place. So network attached our little NAS over there, and we're basically doing that. So we're gonna wait for some people to come on. This has been a real brouhaha today, and I'm not saying that we're surprised that it's happening, but man, Burton Cummings has taken some drastic steps to try to stop what he thinks is something that shouldn't be happening, which is the Guess Who's music being performed by a bunch of guys who really didn't write the songs. And we've interviewed I had Gary Peterson on a little while ago from that version of the Guess Who, talking about his side of the story, and Gary Peterson wasn't like a major songwriter at all in the Guess Who. He was their drummer since the very beginning, on and off for the most part. He was the guy who played the drums for the band the longest time. But yeah, it's always a livelihood for some people that they've lost their livelihood, but are they? That's nice. It's like someone walking in and saying, "Well, I need to live, so I want to live in your house because I need a place to stay." David May, it shouldn't be happening. What shouldn't be happening? What's your David? What's your side on this? I Will this set precedent? I'm not sure legally, because Gary Peterson and Jim Cale own the name, it seems, or Jim Cale owns the name. And let me read your comment. Hi, John. What in the world? Wow. Rain Cloud Music TFS6. Well, I know. What's going to happen here? I'm gonna wait for a few more people to get on, and then we're going to talk about. There's ramifications of it. The world is filled with fake bands where there's not an original member. Now, in this case, the classic lineup, I was just looking up the classic lineup, and I wasn't surprised. It was exactly the lineup that I thought. The classic lineup of the Guess Who is Burton Cummings, vocals, guitar, keyboard, flute, harmonica. Randy Bachman, guitars, backing vocals. Jim Cale, bass, backing vocals. And Gary Peterson, who is still in that band that he calls a fake band, drums and backing vocals. That's the nucleus of the classic lineup of the Guess Who until they started switching around. Randy Bachman left and formed Bachman Turner Overdrive and a few other bands after that. But will this make people wake up? You know what Mark Farner of Grand Funk told me? Mark Farner of Grand Funk says, I wish, and I guess there is a site. I wish there was a site where before you go to see the band, you could go see if you're seeing the band or at least the singer or the guitarist or the songwriters who were responsible for the songs. Let me just put that down a little bit here. Who were responsible for doing the songs. This is a huge thing right now as performers are getting older. Kiss just sold their rights, but they want to do sort of an ABBA thing. Sold their rights to the people who did the ABBA hologram thing. Let me just get to your comment. Oh, yeah, Rick, there you go. Rick Tyndall says Little River Band had a similar thing. Welshie all over. I'm really curious how Jim Cale trademarked the name in the first place without the others' knowledge. And Ronnie Parker says, hello, John. Well, can I tell you a little story before we get going? Now, Stephen Housden, who joined, I think, LRB in 80 or 81, I think 81, guitar player, didn't really write any of the big hits. But anyway, he joined Little River Band at that time. In the long run, inadvertently, he had a chance to, legally it seems, to own the name, right? There's some cachet in owning the name of the Little River Band. A lot of cachet, I'd say, right? But is he the Little River Band? Now, I interviewed the three guys in the Little River Band who were responsible for most of the hits. B. Birtles, Graham Goldman, and hold on, Glenn Shorrock, and Graham Goebel. That's his name. duh, I've interviewed him like 4 times. And they all told me a very similar story. They lost the name. I think by mistake in their part, possibly, that they weren't paying attention to who owned the name, and they were all leaving one by one. And then Stephen Houston basically took the name. Now, I'll tell you this story for a reason. Now, when you go see the Little River Band, there's one guy who sang one hit, as far as I know, maybe more, and it was the Night Owls. So when you go to see the Little River Band, most of the guys on stage, almost all the guys on stage, are not Australian, which the band is famous for being Australian. But one day I put a Graham Goebel interview clip with a logo from the Little River Band, which had a platypus on it. Now remember, well known for New Zealand, Australia. And I was given a copyright strike. Who owns the name? Is it not Stephen Houston? Someone, if it was him that gave me a copyright strike for putting in the background a logo of the band, which he could have just said, take it down. Take it down. I own the name. No, instead, he gave me a copyright strike. So sometimes these fights get dirty. It was to me, it was the dirtiest thing anyone's ever done for me on my YouTube channel. I remember going, was it you, Stephen Houston? Did you do that? Anyway, I'm glad I got that out of the way, because that peeved me off. Immediately, I contacted Graham Goebel. I said, Graham, does he own that platypus? He couldn't own it because they're not even Australian anymore. And he said, yeah, well, as far as I know, I don't know. So let me, we've got enough people on here now. Let me just get to the story. We're going to get to the Guess Who story, which is juicy in itself. The headline, of course, is the battle over classic rock band, the Guess Who, just went nuclear. It's also a headline that Rolling Stone put together, and Burton Cummings is the one who contacted Rolling Stone magazine, or the other way around, to basically give his side of the story. Like first of all, the Guess Who, the current version with Graham Peterson, Gary Peterson, the original drummer, the well-known drummer in the classic lineup. He's the only member left, and he doesn't always drum. He even told me when he talked to me a few months ago that he has 2-3 other drummers in the background if he ever gets sick, because he's not a young man anymore. He also told me he's writing his autobiography if he ever gets a chance. So before I get to your comments, and I hope I'm not being too loud on my microphone right here, because the fervor of this story is just getting to me. The by headline is basically, Burton Cummings, I'm going to lose some money, but the name is worthless without those songs. Burton Cummings told Rolling Stone magazine he gave up some royalties to prevent the band from playing. And the current band released a statement saying, well, we're having some copyright problems or something. I think I probably have it here. I'll read it to you. That they had to cancel some shows. And it's a little sharp. Burton Cummings, a founding singer-songwriter of the Guess Who, has taken extraordinary measures to stop the band's current iteration from performing the songs. This is from Classic Rock magazine, Ultimate Classic Rock. And in October, Cummings, let me just put a little picture up here. Hold on. Let me just give me a second. Oops, that's not right. Let me just go back. Well, that's weird. There we go. There we go. Now, they say the band would be hard-pressed to put together a show without their songs. And Burton Cummings basically put a world together where they can't perform without those songs. And he doesn't want them to perform Guess Who songs because they didn't have anything to do with the Guess Who songs. So you can't blame him for that. Hold on. There we go. Let me read some of your comments. This is as juicy as it gets, but he says, we are the Guess Who. Me and Burton Cummings in the early days, because me and Randy Bachman, we are that iteration of the hits. We wrote the hits. It was our band. He feels bad about this other band performing without having written any of the hits. Now, we've had the current version of the Guess Who on our show. We had Derek Sharp, who's married to Sass Jordan. I didn't know he was married to Sass Jordan. He basically said, you got to be the only guy in the country who doesn't know I'm married to Sass Jordan. I'm going, buddy, like a couple of days ago, I didn't know who you were. But nothing, and that's fine. So the current lineup is basically Derek Sharp, vocals, guitar, piano. Very good looking guy, good singer. Teddy Andreadis, keyboards. Michael Stertow, lead guitar. Greg Smith, bass. Gary Peterson on drums and backing vocals. And that's the current version of the Guess Who. Now, Derek Sharp, don't get me wrong, great interview, good guy. I don't know why he was hurt by the fact that I didn't know he was married to Sass Jordan, but it was kind of a weird exchange. And then I interviewed Sass Jordan a week ago, and I told her, I says, by the way, I'm the guy. She said, what do you mean you're the guy? I said, well, I'm the guy. She said, oh, you're the guy who didn't. Yeah, and she was really nice about it. Sass was nice, but Derek seemed to take it personally. I'm not sure why. Maybe he didn't, but it was a weird exchange. If you've ever seen it on video, I should put it up. It was a weird exchange. I kept going, what's he making a big deal out of it? Okay. Welshie all over. I'm curious how Jim Cale trademarked. I've read that already. Ronnie Parker. Hello, John. David May. If Donnie McDougal was back in the band with Cale, it could be a decent lineup. Maybe even Bill Wallace. David May. Looking forward to Henman interview. We're working on it right now. The David Henman interview. Like right now, Shannon is literally upstairs cutting up the David Henman of April Wine, by the way, the original lineup of April Wine. Speaking of Canadian bands. She's doing the David Henman interview first, the original guitarist of April Wine. She's going to move on to Jim Henman, who's the cousin, who was in the first album. The Henman brothers were in the first 3 albums. And then we're going to do Richie, who was the original drummer of April Wine, who basically drummed on You Could Have Been Late. So we're actually working on it right now. And I just found my Brian Greenway and Jerry Mercer interviews today that I did in 2000. So there you go. Rain Cloud Music. And here Toto is getting sued and having to pay for their name. Don't get me started. Well, this is something to do with Jeff Piccaro's widow. I don't know all the details. I know how frustrating it is because they call themselves basically Toto Dogs of War, but people still call it Toto. And that was a real brouhaha as well. That took a long time to settle. So Josh McKenzie, Jim owns the name. Burton, who owns the music rights, allowed them to play songs thus far until they abused it. They had misleading advertising. It's true. I'm not going to read the rest of your comment. Basically, Burton was saying on behalf of Randy Bachman that some of the advertisement was making it seem like he was still in this iteration of the band. And Randy Bachman was, and they are certainly not and haven't been for a while. Wilshire all over. I love interviews with Graham Goebel, where he explains the situation with the LRB name. That took a lot of writes and rewrites, and we wanted to make sure, and Graham wanted to make sure that he put something up, and even passed it by his lawyer, to make sure that his version was legally something that he wouldn't get sued over, seriously. And so I'd send him a version of it. He'd send me back a version of the interview. I'm going, that's fine. And we even said that during the interview, that we didn't want to mislead anyone. But Graham Goebel wanted to make sure that he gave his version of where the name is with Little River Band, LRB, under the Stephen Housden situation. So Stephen thinks he deserves it. That's his. And remember, we didn't hear Stephen's version of it. Stephen basically gave me a copyright strike. That's what he did by using a logo, which has never happened to me before. I remember going, if Stephen Housden, if this is, why didn't you just ask me to put it down? Why did you have to give me a copyright strike, which lasts for 90 days? I was sweating bullets. Okay, Vinyl Spin, YVR. I'm so pleased that Rolling Stone has been given attention. Alan Murphy, both with the Guess Who and the Little River Band. Key guy quits. Alan Murphy, the trouble started when 2 clubs using Cummings' photo and his version of several songs. Vinyl Spin, YVR. Jim and Gary have something like 12.5% credit percentage to the song American Woman. That is essential. Welshie all over. Who is Sass Jordan? Sass Jordan, come on. Sass is, I love Sass Jordan. when Happy Together, was it Happy Together by The Box came out? Vinyl Spin. Who Sass Jordan is. Okay. It's always drama, drama, drama with these guys. Welsh all over. Graham Goble is the only interview where he didn't come across as bitter as two founding members. I found that Glenn Shorrock, I knew the Little River Band was going to come up a lot during this conversation. I just knew I was going to talk about the Guess Who, and the Little River Band would come up. Some guy, I remember, this is hearsay, this is like someone said they were at a Little River Band concert, and they had albums, and he claims that the band signed all the early, like Sleeper Catcher, and First Under the Wire and stuff like that. And the band didn't say a thing. Some of the guys in the band didn't say like, okay, we didn't perform on any of these albums. Now, I don't know if that's true. And I'm sure that happens. I've got, well, they're upstairs. I have April Wine albums where I asked Brian Greenway, who's currently the only member from the classic lineup, still in April Wine. I asked him to sign albums going way back to the first album with the Feet on April Wine. Now, he said, well, I wasn't on those albums. To Brian's credit, Brian Greenway says, you don't mind me signing these albums because I wasn't on these. And I said, well, I just interviewed him and he knew that I would know because April Wine's my favorite Canadian band. I says, I know that, but you've kind of earned your points. So he signed albums he wasn't on. He signed the first album on record, the live album, Electric Jewel, Stand Back, The Whole World's Going Crazy, Forever for Now. If he signed all the Live at the Elmo combo, he wasn't on that. He signed all those albums, and I said, I don't mind. You've earned your points. So venues, going back to the Guess Who, venues have to pay a certain right for performing songs in their venue. So it affects them too. Burton has been very vocal in saying that I will lose money for this, but I cannot have this. He calls it a fake band. This iteration of the band, as he puts it, is not representative of the Guess Who. They didn't write any of the songs, right? So it's and again, let me just read to you, like Burton Cummings, Gary Peterson, who's still in the band of the Guess Who, the classic lineup. Hold on, let me just get, and it even says on Wiki the classic lineup. It says beside August 1966 to May 1970, classic lineup of the Guess Who. Burton Cummings, vocals, keyboards. Randy Bachman, guitars, guitars, backing vocals. Jim Cale, bass, backing vocals. Gary Peterson, drums, backing vocals. And then Kurt Winter joined, and the Dominic Triano near the end. I like that incarnation of the Guess Who as well. I love Dominic Triano in the Guess Who. A lot of people didn't. He's long dead. I talked to his brother a little while ago about how proud he was to be in the Guess Who. But bottom line is, the current version of the Guess Who have had to cancel their shows. Can they really perform without those classic songs? I mean, can they really perform like American Woman if he stops them? Because remember, Burton Cummings has bought back the rights. That's the other thing. Burton Cummings owns those songs now. A little while ago, he bought back the rights to the Guess Who catalog, and it's his. So whoever has a piece of it, he owns it. Right? So there you go. Let's get some comments. Ronnie Parker says, thumbs up to Shannon working hard upstairs. She's almost finished David Henman. She did say, David Henman from April Wine, the original lineup, first 3 albums. She did say, and she talks a lot about the people that I interview. I can't stand listening to myself, so I don't like clipping up my interviews. That's going to change now. We're going to get a lot more interviews up a lot faster because I don't have to look at my face that looks like a shoe and listen to my jargon. I hate watching myself. So she's told me after clipping David Henman, she said, what an interesting man. What a nice human being that you wish you could just sit down and talk to. Danny O'Keefe, she felt the same way. She found that Danny was a real poet who wrote and sung Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues and The Road for Jackson Hawk, Magdalena for Leo Sayer from Endless Flight. Okay. Let me see, where are we now? John Ross. I have not heard the latest iteration of the Guess Who. Do they sound like the classic era? No, they don't. Their album, which had a French name. Don't get me wrong, I'm French. I have nothing wrong with that. Their latest album. It was insane. The fact that they named their latest album. I forget what it was called, but I'm going, why did you name? And to their credit and discredit, because they lose either way in some ways, the new album doesn't sound like the Guess Who. It's very heavy. So that's kind of good that they're carving out their own sound. But I'm not sure why they would do that because the Guess Who, there's a certain lane that the Guess Who is in. But they're not the Guess Who. They're not the original Guess Who. So maybe carving out their own lane makes some sense, right? Vinyl Spin YVR. Burton has been handed albums to sign that already had Derek Sharp's signature over his face. Oh my God. Really? Oh no. Did he do that? Alan Murphy. I was 15 when Sass' first album came out. I felt she was a nastier version of Alana Miles. Oh, I don't know if she was a nastier version. I'd flip that around. Nothing against Alana Miles. I like the grittiness of Alana Miles. But maybe it's the blonde hair that made a difference. Alana just seemed rougher. Even though they both have raspy voices, of course. Aaron Campbell. One title, the thumbnail of the band is not the classic lineup. It is the Sass Jordan version. Rain Cloud Music. I doubt it. Vinyl Spin. Burton owns a majority of the songs. What he bought was producer Jack Richardson's share, which is 50%. So now he owns a majority. Right. Rick Mendel. Think about this. If Ringo gets three other guys, forms a band and calls it the Beatles, is it really? Wow, there you go. Rain Cloud Music. Rick Mandel. Well, that's it. The ultimate example of that is always the Stones, but mostly the Beatles, because the ultimate band is the Beatles. Whether you like them or not, you know what? The line in the sand, the perfect example is always the Beatles. I'm not sure why. I have to drink some water. Dry. It's dry here. I'm in the basement. They stick me in the basement. I'm like Al Pacino. Just when I think I'm out, they suck me back in. So what do you think about this? Would you go see the Guess? If knowing what you know now, let's just say you don't know. Let's say you don't know. If someone came up to you before you bought tickets, you haven't bought the tickets yet. If someone came up to you and said, okay, oh, you want to go see the Guess Who? Well, guess what? They only have their drummer. Who, by the way, told me he's still improving. Gary Peterson told me a few months ago, he says, well, I still practice all the time. I have to. Would you go? If it's like people about Skynyrd. You're not seeing Leonard Skynyrd. There's no original members of Leonard Skynyrd in the band. So if you go see them, it's nice. It's a legacy for Leonard Skynyrd, but you're not seeing Leonard Skynyrd. You're not seeing the Little River Band. Grand Funk. You're seeing Mel, who's bass player. That band split up, right? I was just trying to think of what Mark Farner told me, what he calls them, fake funk or something, right? So they have their bass player and they have their drummer. But the guy who used to be in 38 Special is the lead singer of Grand Funk. It's not. Mark's wrote and sang most of the songs. So you're seeing Grand Funk. I was just telling Ronnie Platt of Kansas a few days ago. I just interviewed him last week. Is it still Kansas? And he says, well, there's certain bands, somehow it's different with certain bands. Tom Brislin, Ronnie Platt, Rich Williams, the guy with the patch. I hate to call him that, but he's still with the band. But the only two original members left in Kansas are Phil Ehart, who just had a heart attack, who's also their manager, who plans on coming back, and Rich Williams. Yes is another great example. Steve Howe. There you go. And Steve's getting up there in age. Genesis were different. Genesis, when you went to see the reunion, I mean, Phil Collins was in really bad shape. He was sitting in his chair, but it was Phil Collins. It was Mike Rutherford. It was Tony Banks. Even the backup band. It was still Daryl Sturmer, who came into the fold when Steve Hackett left and ended up replacing Steve Hackett and played with Phil Collins for the majority of his solo career, right? And Nick Collins was the drummer this time. God, I don't know what it is down here. Excuse me. John Bowden's dying. So anyway, are you seeing the Guess Who? That's really what this is about. When you go see the Guess Who, are you seeing the Guess Who? Are you seeing a great version of these songs? Are you seeing a great cover band? I would say yes. I've seen them. They sound great. You know, when I had Derek Sharp on, I said, well, how do you react to, he gave me this sports team, part of what he said, if I remember correctly, you know, and Ronnie Platt of Kansas told me the same thing, you know, like sports teams change and, you know, the Philadelphia Flyers, Bernie Perront's not there anymore, or Rick McLeish or Bobby Clark, they're not there anymore. One of my favorite teams, my favorite hockey team in the 70s. I'm still a Philadelphia Flyers fan. Not as big as I was when Bernie had that number one in the back and won 2 Stanley Cups and 2 Conn Smythe trophies. But I still like Philadelphia, but not the same way. So everyone gives, can you hear the dogs upstairs going crazy? So that's the thing. Would you go? So I'm going to add that. Let me see if some people answer that question. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm getting so congested down here. Douglas Strother says, join late. I must say that when I saw the Guess Who on their reunion tour in 2000 in Hamilton, they were unbelievably good. Hearing album tracks like Talisman was special. You know, when I like running back to Saskatoon, when I went to see Burton Cummings like a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, and they opened the set, and anyone who's seen Burton knows that he opens a set with that and has for quite a long time. Running Back to Saskatoon is like one of the greatest songs. I'm listening to that and going, oh my God, that just brings me to a place like I can't even comprehend. But that was Burton, right? Yes, he can sing that song. Okay. Rick says, I was the original singer. I want the original singer of those songs, or I'm not interested. I can't hear Glenn Shorrock sing Cool Chains, same as the Guess Who. Calvin Bear, great group that definitely deserves the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They will get in, I believe. Ronnie Parker, Sass is bluesy badass. Yes, she is. David May, Burton was putting what? Trinian in the band? It was a big mistake. Oh, Triano, you mean? Hold on, let me get back to that. Great talent. A lot of people didn't like Dominic Triano in there. Douglas Struthers. I would only see the Guess Who with Bachman and Burton. Welshie all over. The difference is that the Guess Who ceased to exist whereas the Beatles did. Rain Clouds. I don't know. I have to justify the cost of the ticket. When I saw Toto, I felt it was Toto. You know, Joseph Williams has always been my favorite singer. John Zeka always gets annoyed by me saying that. I said, John Zeka is the guy who's putting together the Bobby Kimball, the original lead singer of Toto, his documentary. And I love John. But, you know, I always razz him going, John, I can't help what I like. To me, I prefer Joseph Williams than Bobby Kimball. Bobby's great. I love Bobby Kimball. But when I heard Joseph, there was just something about his voice that I'm going, he always goes, ah. I love John, though. He's a good guy. Carmine Labardi, Foreigner, and now the Guess Who. Just tribute bands. Foreigner's a great example of that, yeah. Rick, Top 40 Hub. Randy's BTO and Burton's are playing the P&E in this August. Would love to see them together. The Real Jackson. Foreigner is another band, yes. David May. Wouldn't go see the current fake Guess Who. There you go. Wine Sipping Cowboy. The Babies. 2 members return. Rick, I'd rather see Burton or Backman's Cummings solo shows. Yes, the Real Jackson, Jefferson Airplane, Starship are touring with no original members. Saline 786. As long as the Doobie Brothers have the original founding members, Tom and Pat, Tom Johnston and Pat Simmons, I will consider them legit. I agree. Clark Gregg, Pete Agnew. Nazareth only has the original bassist, which is Pete Agnew. He's been on the show many times. Aaron Campbell. No would pass on this tribute band. David May. I'm so glad I was able to see the Stampeders a few years back. I saw them, I think, 3 times. And I've interviewed not all 3. I've interviewed Ronnie and Kim, which, by the way, we're ready to put up. David May, do you like Vancouver compared to New Brunswick? I'm not in New Brunswick anymore. We're back in Alberta. We came back. You know, the weird thing about moving from one side, it's like being in the States. You know, when the market's going crazy, we moved from Alberta, which is like Colorado area up in Canada, towards New Brunswick, which is Maine in the United States, basically, in comparison. Colorado's further down, Maine stuck to New Brunswick. But we moved across the country to be closer to my mother, and healthcare was so bad in New Brunswick, having an autistic daughter, and we didn't need to help my mother because my brother's there and he's taking really good care of my mom. So we decided it just wasn't right for us, and Shannon's dad needed some help. So he was basically saying, if you want to come back, you can. So we came back, and houses were like $100,000 more. Like, we were just shoveling things all over the place. We're going, how are we going to buy a house? How are we going to do this now? We're outpriced ourselves coming back into the province. So there you go. Why is it so dry down here? I don't know. So anyway, the Burton, circling back. And I'm dumbing this down for everyone. Not because you're dumb, of course you're not, but basically saying Burton Cummings sued a few months ago the current lineup to stop using the name. That didn't stop, and they continued doing that. And he felt that it was advertisement that showed that he was still in the band, and or Burton, Randy Bachman, who was in the classic lineup in the beginning, early 70s. And so he decided he would stop them from performing their songs, which is not their songs, the Guess Who, but basically Burton Cummings' own songs. And now the current version with Kevin Sharp and Gary Peterson, Gary's the original drummer, can't really perform without singing those songs, calling themselves the Guess Who, which is another side of the argument of going, well, if you can't perform those songs, if you don't own those songs, and you didn't write those songs, are you really the Guess Who? And everyone's bringing certain bands up front today, like Foreigner, no original members. Mick Jones does not perform with them because he can't. So if you go see Foreigner, you're not seeing any members who performed any of those hits. None. If you're seeing Little River Band, you're seeing a gentleman who sang The Night Owls. Nothing else, as far as I know. And that's a sad state of being in a band and you didn't contribute to them. And someone told me, and again, it's just hearsay, someone had said on one of our live streams that they went to get their album signed by the Little River Band, for instance, and they all signed it, and none of them were on any of those hits. So, like, what? In this case, it was your earlier albums. So it makes you wonder, like, why wouldn't you say? See, again, I'll say the story again. When I interviewed April Wine, Miles Goodwin, Brian Greenway, Jerry Mercer, their second big drummer, he's a big guy anyway, and Jim Clench, who has left us just like Miles Goodwin. When I went to get Brian Greenway to sign the albums he wasn't on, Brian says, "You sure you want me to sign these? Because I wasn't on these albums, like the first 5, 6 albums." And I went, no, you've earned your. But he told me, Brian Greenway told me I wasn't on those albums. There's a certain amount of class that goes to that. So I'm glad, at least on some thing, that he's still carrying on the band. Would I go see April Wine in the current lineup? Probably no. I don't know. Mark Perront's a great singer, but I wouldn't. No. So. Let's get to some of your questions. The real Jackson said the St. Peter's Sweet City Woman would play in between classes over, the HS school intercom. Really? David May. Heartbroken Boppers is great to hear live. Vinyl Spin, YVR. I'm seeing Burton at the P&E front row. Okay, right on. Rain Cloud Music, TF6, S6. Johnny Z is cool, but it could be a gospel group, and I'd have to justify the ticket cost. Vinyl Spin, YVR. What are your thoughts on Randy's current BTO? Well, that's another example. But Randy was the major part of Bachman Turner Overdrive. That's the thing. When I go, hence the name Bachman Turner Overdrive. Randy told me, and I need to clarify this again. Randy told me that my name is Randy Bachman. It's not Bachman, but people say Bachman because it sounds easier and people seem to like it more. But he says, I'm Randy Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive. That's what people would say. Oh, imagine that. But it is Bachman. If you watch the Randy Bachman documentary, in the first minute, people are saying Bachman and Bachman. Two different ways. So it doesn't matter. The Saline 786. Many of these original band's members should not complain about what's happening after they have sold their rights. That's the thing. That's the other side of the argument, right? Aaron Campbell. Boston without Brad Delp was not Boston. You can say that, but Tom Scholz wrote all those songs. Most of them, anyway. And I'm really feeling like I have an allergic reaction to something down here. I don't know what's going on. Let me just bring that up. Yeah, while I'm clearing my nasal passages, there you go. Some BTO. See, I was just looking at Randy Bachman. I said BTO. There you go. So again, I'll reiterate. Burton Cummings was trying to get the current incarnation of the Guess Who, which features Gary Peterson, the original drummer, to stop performing as the Guess Who. I think they could have called themselves the new Guess Who, or I don't know if Burton would have had a problem with that. Probably. I'm guessing here. I can't speak for Burton Cummings, but I'm leaning towards maybe he'd have a problem with it, because that's misleading too. The current lineup of the so-called Guess Who, which has been together since 2023 to present: Derek Sharp, who we interviewed on this channel, vocals, guitar; Teddy Andriadis, I don't know how to say his name, keyboards, harmonica; Michael Startow, lead guitar; Greg Smith, bass; Gary Peterson, drums and backing vocals. The classic lineup, even Wiki says it's a classic lineup, were Burton Cummings, vocals, keyboards, guitar; Randy Bachman, guitar, backing vocals; Jim Cale, bass, backing vocals; and Gary Peterson, drums, backing vocals. And Gary's still there. Important to mention. But since he owns the songs, he's taken legal action where the current version of the Guess Who cannot perform those songs. Can't do it. And without performing those songs, doesn't that show that maybe they're not the Guess Who? I mean, if they can't perform the song, if people go to see a Guess Who concert and all of a sudden they can only perform their latest album, what was it called? Plan d'Amour? Let me look it up. The latest album had a strange name, and I remember. Let me look. I'm going to give you it had a strange, really strange name. Come on, give it to me, baby. It's not showing it. Yeah, I remember they gave me the name of it. My first thought was that is a strange mofo name for a band, for an album, for the Guess Who. But they wanted to call it that, and that's fine. But let me ask you this. We're not going to be on here much longer. Let me ask you this. Has anyone gone to see a band, a classic band, and later found out that they weren't seeing any of the original members? or else this was not what they expected. Please share that with us. You've gone to see this band. Could be the Little River Band, could be Foreigner, could be Grand Funk. There's a lot of, could be Guess Who? That you went to see this band and all of a sudden you're going, oh, this doesn't seem right here. Right? I asked Jonathan Cain maybe 3 years ago of Journey. When Arnel Pineda was the current lead singer, not replacing Steve Perry. There've been a few guys in between. But he said he was a little worried because here's this small Filipino man who sings like nobody's business. Do I think Arnel Pineda deserves to be there? Man, I just saw them in concert with Toto here in Calgary. Arnel is a great singer. I have nothing, but he doesn't look like Steve Perry. You know, he said he was worried. You know, Jonathan Cain said he was a little concerned how people would think of, because everyone knows that, well, Steve Perry is not Filipino. But when Arnel Pineda sang with Journey, I was satisfied. I was going, this guy is an amazing singer. The band was way too loud. My ears hurt because Shannon Forrest of Toto got us some tickets. God, it's dry down here. I also sneezed about 45 times this morning. We were clearing up our basement over there, looking for the Miles Goodwin interview from April Wine. Okay. Just one guess. Isley Paint says just one guess. Yeah, one person to guess who. Douglas says great photos. David May, when you run into Brian Greenway, he always takes time to chat with you. Brian Greenway of April 1 is one of the nicest guys I've ever interviewed. Actually, it was Brian Greenway who gave me free tickets to the last time I saw April Wine when Miles was in 2000. It's the last time I saw April Wine. It was Brian at the end who said, hey, man, do you need some tickets for the show? It's 7th time I saw April Wine. I've never seen anybody 7 times. Let me see. Some comments are just trying to be funny, but I don't know the context. Rick, Top 40 Hub. John, did you hear the story about how Burton came to grow a mustache? No. The Saline 786. Oh, they could have named the band. Who did you expect? From the Guess Who. John Ross, joined late, so I'm 10 minutes behind. But its version of the Guess Who does not include the sound of the classic version. I would not go see them. I want to hear those great songs. Yeah, of course. Isley Paints is just one guess. Justiny. Hey, Justiny, who cares? Let them play. It's just people enjoying music, okay? Tony Stevens. A lot of dues are being open because they use the name The Guess Who. They are posers. Rain Cloud Music. Seen Toto, Kansas, and Chicago. They were all killer. David May. Burton grew a mustache to hide a scar he obtained in Hawaii. I didn't know that. Paul Blair. A few LRB, GW didn't much of that. But the Guess Who still did plenty of good shows. Douglas Struthers' recent album, Plein d'Amour. That's it. I was close. Hayes Anderson. I saw Yes at the Greek in Los Angeles, but I had a great time anyway. Rain Cloud Music. Pinella Kills. Yeah, Arnel Pineda Pineda Kills. Arnel Pineda of Journey is an amazing singer. Like, you can't, if you're going to replace Steve, and remember, he was like, I think the third guy after Steve Perry left. If you're going to replace Steve Perry, at least have someone who sings in that vein. Who is of that ilk. And when I saw Journey like a few weeks ago, I was very satisfied. It was so loud. You know, Toto was great. The sound was great, and of course the leading act, the big act, the headlining act. They're always louder, but man, that was loud. That was crazy loud. Hayes Anderson says 45 is a lot of sneezes. If I get, as an aside here, bear with me. I was down here wearing this coat. That's why I always wear long sleeve. People always see me wearing long sleeves in the summertime. If I get a chill, if anybody has this, please tell me. If I have a chill, I will sneeze violently 45 times. That's why my voice is a little hoarse right now. This was like 3-4 hours ago. And I had to go upstairs. Usually I feel like having a nap. I couldn't because a lot of things were going on. But it was not fun. So this is me after sneezing. The first time it happened, my friend Lindy Smith, who became a doctor, we were in Banff, Alberta. Lindy, Rose, Larry, and I, 4 of us, going to Banff, single, all of us. And I had a beer in a hotel room. And I came outside. Banff is like that. It's middle of the Rocky Mountains. And I got a chill. And I sneezed. And Lindy counted. After about 10, she said, I think you counted. She started counting how many. I sneezed 75 times. By the time we got to the bar, which was called Tommy's, if anyone knows Banff, happened in bar. I had lost my voice. Still picked up a lady. I'm not one of those one night stand guys, but I still got her number. I don't remember if I ever called her. This was 1988 or 89. I probably called her. I don't know. The Saline 786. I agree with what someone already said. I want to hear the original singer. Douglas Struthers. You got an allergy blast from the basement dust. I think so, but it also comes with being cold. So it happens upstairs just as much as it happens downstairs. Fit to be tie-dyed. Hey, nice to have you back. I just posted a video on Wheatfield Soul. That's see the Guess Who guys squabbling. Honestly, without Burton, you shouldn't call yourself the Guess Who. See, Journey has Neil Sean, Jonathan Cain. It's a big part of, like, for instance, their biggest album, Escape. It's a big part. Vic Hildebrand. I saw Foreigner a few years ago. I knew they weren't the original members. However, I knew that many of them were longtime members. My one disappointment was Mick Jones wasn't there. There you go. Justin E. The Guess Who has Gary Peterson, Jim Cale, and even Bachman, all stars. Isley Pate, The Grateful Dead, without Jerry is not the Dead. Well, they don't call themselves that. David May. How's your lovely wife? She's upstairs editing David Henman, finishing up David Henman. By the way, just for April Wine fans, we're going to, before I do the April Wine special, we're going to put up, for instance, David Henman clips and the entire interview first. Then we're going to put up Jim Henman, the entire interview and clips, smaller clips. Then Richie Henman, the original drummer, and clips. And then we're probably going to put up my Miles Goodwin interview if we ever find it. It's here someplace. Definitely my Brian Greenway interview, who's still with the band, the only guy still with the band. Then we're going to put up a Jerry Mercer, the drummer interview, the big guy who was in the classic lineup. And then hopefully Jim Clench, if we can find that. The problem is Miles Goodwin is on one side, Jim Clench is on the other side. And the reason I probably lost the interview is because I was using it for an article I was writing for a paper I used to write for in Vancouver. So, the Saline, thank you. 786, thank you. To pay several boxes of Kleenex. Okay, I'm going to just bear with me. I'm going to do this so I can... God! I'll be okay, really. Enjoy yourselves with some nice pictures of the Guess Who while I... do what guys have to do sometimes. Oh, look at these. Look, there's Randy Bachman. Gary Peterson between him and Burton Cummings, and Jim Cale. And there you go. Wow, that was fun. And by the way, thank you for everyone who has. We've had some really nice donations on PayPal the last few weeks, which has come in really handy because YouTube has been. I don't know what YouTube's doing. We've had some problems with some of our videos. For instance, December. We released the most videos we've ever released. No, it's not because we released too many. I already checked. In December, and we thought we had like the classic, like Rick Emmett. We had Bill Simzik, the producer of the Eagles, Terry Brown, the producer of Rush. We had some great interviews, and we had one of the worst months we've ever had. Are you saying it's because of December, because of Christmas? No. The Christmas before that, we did well. December before that, we did incredibly well. And the one before that, we did well. So times can change, but we started going, I don't know if I can make a living off YouTube anymore. This is crazy. And before anyone says, well, aren't you lucky to make it's taken 10 years for us to be able to make a living on YouTube and to make it work. So in the last few weeks, a lot of people gave us, just out of the blue, some PayPal donations, which has been really nice. I appreciated that, considering I just lost my job in radio. Don't get me wrong, it's okay. I've been at this radio station for 30 years. I just got my 30-year plaque, and then I was laid off. And you know, I've been there since, actually technically longer than 30 years, since 1990. I was there. So that's a long time. They were very, very good to me. They gave me a really good settlement. I was very happy. But at the same time, I'm going, well, there's another income gone. You know, now we're left to YouTube. So out of nowhere, some people just donated some, and there's always a link in the description to PayPal. Someone just said, hey, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. So we've been able to buy some new equipment with some of that. Lighting. Some brand new, easier, softer lighting, which is what we do whenever we get a donation. So if you ever want to donate to the channel, no pressure. Times are hard for a lot of people. There's always a PayPal link at the very top of every one of our videos. We're going to wrap things up in a second. But also there's a Patreon link where you get early access to our videos, or you can buy a t-shirt or a hat. It's really nice Rocky Stream Music hats. So anyway, thank you. The Saline 786, that's very kind of you. And Saline 786, yes, Paul Blair, Pat Simmons has been the glue of the Doobie Brothers. Really has. Pat Simmons has been there since the beginning. When Tom Johnston left, Michael McDonald came on with Taking It to the Streets in the mid-'70s. Who was still there? Pat Simmons. Pat Simmons has always been there. You know, John McVie came in on One Step Closer after Minute by Minute. He deserves to be part of the classic lineup. He's certainly earned his, well, he's a great player. I mean, like, John McPhee is amazing. Bill Payne he's not with them anymore, but Bill Payne was there for a while, from Little Feat. And now Michael McDonald's back, which is great. Michael McDonald's releasing his book in May. Everyone's really happy about that. But Tom Johnston's back, you know, healthy again. It's kind of a nice thing. Okay. Smash that like button. The Saline 786. Thank you for anyone who smashed our like button. Congrats. You must have worked for Clear Channel. No, I worked for Bell Media, and they were very good to me. You know, a lot of people like to say, oh, well, oh, no, you were let go. That's awful. Bell Media has been nothing but fair to me. They used to be called Chum. Well, they weren't called Chum. When I joined at 14C Fun at West Fort there, for anyone who knows Vancouver, I worked for that classic station, 14C Fun AM station, classic station. And then they bought a station called CHQM, and I ended up being the announcer there who brought in the NAC format, New Adult Contemporary, which is the wave format. We did that for a lot of years. We switched it to a smooth jazz format. Then we switched it to a love songs format. Then we switched it to a CHR format, well, sort of contemporary hits radio. And they were always incredibly good to me. And when I had to move to Calgary from Vancouver, because the station's in Vancouver, because of autism, they let me do my show right here on this computer over here. And when they let me go and gave me a really nice package, they let me keep all the equipment. They said, no, you could probably use it. I've never had a bad thing to say about them. They were really good to me. So I'm not a victim of any of this. They were really, really good. And I'm not just saying that because they asked me to. They didn't ask me to. Okay. Scarecrow Bands. No Guess Who without Burton. Never mind Randy. Paul Blair. It's really Burton, right? Because Burton was there the entire time until he went solo with his first solo album with I'm Scared and Stand Tall. Paul Blair. Been there, done that. In radio 20 years myself. Oh, cool, Paul. McGraw-Y'all. McGraw-Y'all? What the hell? My band opened for Jim Kill's Guess Who in the mid-'80s. He was the original guy. He said, I own it, so the Guess Who is whatever I say it is. Wow. The Saline 786. Doobies will be touring with the Eagles in England. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, Diane Smith, thank you so much for your super chat. That's very kind of you. For allergy meds. Diane Smith, thank you. That's a good one. I guess I should be taking some because this happens to me once a week. Should I be taking allergy meds? If I have a sneezing fit once a week, here's the thing, even in the summer, when I'm walking the dogs, if I get a cold sweat in the middle of the summer, I'll be there with two dogs in a park coughing 45 times and everyone will go, stay clear, going, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Especially during COVID, would go, stay away from this guy. Oh, Justiny, thank you. I appreciate that. Listen, I wasn't really begging for money. I mean, I'm just saying, if you ever want to and if you can, that's great. It's just, anyway, thank you for both of you. All three of you. Cash Dollar, copyright strike. Sounds like more Nielsen move. Paul Blair, rare positive job loss moment. Well, that's the thing. You look at the current lineup and they're going, what are we going to do? This is their income. But are you... I didn't mean a while ago to say, it's just like someone say, well, I don't have a house. I'm just going to walk into this house. You know, there is a semblance of them being able legally to do it. Just because you can do something legally, should you be doing it? Someone had said concerning the Little River Band that Stephen Houston owns the name to. He might own the name, but really, should you be doing that? Well, classic bands. How many classic bands are going to continue? Obviously, Kiss is going to continue in 3D form or hologram form. But you know, going in, it's a hologram. Excuse me. You know that. There's no trickery involved. There's no misleading anything. When they call Foreigner the farewell tour of what? You guys didn't play on any of the hits. You're not the farewell tour of anything. None of you guys on stage played on any of the hits. How can you do a farewell tour? Farewell tour to the music? Well, any cover band can do that. Just because it's endorsed by Mick Jones, who owns the name, it was really his band. That's the thing. And the other side of it is, if people want to go, then they go. I was saying that to Ronnie Platt of Kansas a few days ago. I said, well, if people still want to go, do most people know it's not Kansas? Well, see, I would go see Kansas. See, aren't you like that? I would go see Yes. I've interviewed like 5-6 people from Yes, on and off members, you know. Alan White, Bill Bruford, both the main drummers. Dylan Howe, who's Steve Howe's son, he was a drummer for a short time with them. I've interviewed a lot of people from the band. Trevor Rabin recently. And would I go see Yes now? See, that's the thing. But I would go see Yes. And I say this, it's like I'm talking from both sides of my mouth. I would go see Kansas because Tom Brislin, Ronnie Platt, Rich Williams, who I've interviewed all three of them, they interest me. I have interest in it. But there's certain bands I wouldn't go. I wouldn't. I don't know. So there you go. Do you make exceptions for certain bands of going, yeah, but what I see is still, with prog bands, it's innovative. But having said that, my favorite prog band is Genesis. And when I see Genesis without Phil Collins, who can't do it physically anymore. I just talked to Nick, his son, a few weeks ago. Nick Collins, who played with them and played with Mike and the Mechanics with Mike Rutherford. And he says his dad's doing well, but that's what he has to say. And I'm not saying Nick's a liar or anything like that. It's not like that. But that's a relative term if he's doing well. I want there to be a world where Phil Collins is okay. But would I see Genesis without Phil Collins? I don't think so. So I make exceptions to that rule all the time. Do you? Are there bands? Some people said, well, I went to see, a Grand Funk a while ago, and they were fine. If you're happy with it, here's an argument I used to make. An argument I used to make is, I'd rather there be, I told this to Pete Agnew of Nazareth, and I interviewed Danny McCafferty. Dan McCafferty, the lead singer, who's dead now. Manny Charlton's dead. And Pete Agnew's the only remaining member with his sons in the band as well. And I said, I'm glad there's still a Nazareth. So again, I'm talking through both sides of my mouth. There's just certain bands I wouldn't go see. I make exceptions. But having said that, would I go see Nazareth, who are even heavier than they used to be? I wouldn't go see them for that reason. I think their music's great, but I don't know. And Pete's such a nice guy. Pete Agnew's a nice guy. And I don't get influenced because I've talked to the people, because I've interviewed a lot of people in 41 years of radio. Okay. A few more comments and I'm going to hang up my whatever. The Dark Wizard Room. Hi, John. Hey. Shoreline. Burton Cummings gave me 2 copyright strikes for posting a couple of concert videos of the Guess Who performed with Tommy Shaw at the show where they open. And I am just a non-monetized fan. Wow. Don Henley does that a lot. And Don Henley's wife, Sharon, has followed our channel. She's a very nice lady. She's actually come on live feeds a few times. Robert Foss. Super psyched, John. I live in Las Vegas and just bought front row tickets to see BTO when they come here in July. I refuse to see the current Guess Who. Yeah, there you go. McMental? What the heck? Where are you? I lost you here. Yeah. Maybe you sensitive to mold. Eagles been taking a beating with Henley lip syncing. Yeah, it looks like he has. How do I put this? I would still see the Eagles. The only reason I won't see the Eagles, and I have cheap tickets to see the Eagles, cheaper, because Alan Fry is a good buddy of mine, Glenn Fry's brother. After Glenn died, Alan started reaching out, and we started talking. And at one point, Alan Fry and I were talking every day, every single day. And when they came to Vegas before COVID to perform Hotel California in its entirety, Alan said, hey, do you want friends and family tickets? I said, no problem. He sent me a form and I'm going, Alan, this is still way out of my price range. He said, oh, come on, man. Why don't you come? I'm going to go to Vegas. We'll meet up and it'll be great. And then we decided, okay, way past we can't afford a lot of tickets. I mean, I make a living on YouTube. We don't have a lot of money for extra stuff. But I decided we were going to bite the bullet. Then COVID happened and I didn't have to worry about it. But even at friends and family rates, through Alan Fry, Glenn Fry's brother, I couldn't afford to go. Even though we had decided to go, but it was going to cost us. We knew, because we're not one of those families that uses credit cards to go on vacations. We can't do that. Because we make a living on YouTube, you never know what's going to happen the month after. You have to have low costs, right? So there you go. McMental. Okay. McGraw, y'all. I love that name. Leonard Skinner has no original members who played on those classic albums. The current lineup is 90% Nashville guys. True. Raincloud Music. I hate to do this, but I need to charge my phone. About to lose battery. Take it easy, John. Hey, thank you for coming on. The Saline 786. I would go see Journey for the reasons you already stated. To hear Neil Sean play guitar. Neil's amazing. Like, I'm serious, man. Neil's an amazing guitar player. I was so pleased. I saw them on the Escape tour. I mean, listen, if you're going to see Journey, see them on Escape with that classic lineup, right? And I saw them like a few weeks ago. The Dark Wizard Room. Kansas still sounds good. I think Kansas sounds amazing. I would go see Kansas. I might even travel to go see Kansas. Northern Grace, 400 no original members. I heard Jones stopped touring. He did. McMental says Gabriel. Scarecrow's band. I saw Kansas in 1996. Steve Walsh. I'm good. Yeah. I never saw Kansas. Never saw them. See, does your brain work like this? I have my 80s mind for concerts. I moved to the big city in 79 from a small town in northeast New Brunswick on the East Coast. Moved to Edmonton, right across the country with my friend Kendall. And then I met my first wife on the very first night, August 21st, 1979. And I had this beautiful redhead, wonderful lady, basically there from the first day I was in Edmonton. She had a car. We got along incredibly well and then didn't, and got along and didn't. It was great. She's still one of my best friends. Shannon, my current wife, she gets along with Lynn very well. Lynn's a wonderful woman. But I had this girlfriend who knew Edmonton. I got to know Edmonton really well. We went to all the concerts. So I have this brain memory of concerts in Edmonton. And a lot of times when I think about, have I seen that concert? I'll go back to Edmonton in the 80s because that was when I saw the most concerts. And then in the 90s, I became a bigger radio announcer. I had a bigger pot. And I started seeing other people that way. And then in the 2000s, I became a program director of a different city. And I saw more jazz artists. So I have all these pots. And then now I only go to concerts if I get free tickets because I can't afford to go to concerts. This is too expensive. So I have all these spots. And sometimes if I think, I have to really think if I've seen Kansas. Old Mine? I've been doing this for quite a lot of years. I remember my ex-wife, Lynn, told me, John, we saw the Cars. I always give that example if you've heard it before. I said, oh, yeah. I said something about the Cars. She said, John, we saw the Cars. I went, oh, yeah, we saw the Cars. I went into the wrong file. Crazy. Okay. Justin, he says, Skynyrd is really good. Some people, I've heard people say they went to see Skynyrd. It was sound like a Skynyrd show, but there's no original members. If you're okay with it, there's nothing wrong with that. The Saline, John, you are 100% correct. No Grand Funk without the Wild Man. Bob Burton, we original fans of the original bands are old. Most of them are even older. We can't expect them all to still be playing live. Very true. Shoreline, so happy and very talented. Will Evankovich bailed out of the Guess Who. And it's now Styx. And now in Styx, not having to deal with the BS. The Metal Music Maker, the new version, by the way, we're going to be interviewing hopefully Tommy Shaw in the next little while, of Styx. New version of Everything seems so civil. The greats were great flying by their fingernails. Bob Patterson retracted his comment. Scarecrow's bands saw Naz with Pete and Dan. Wasn't old enough to see them before Manny or the drummers. Yeah. Record Hound saw Leonard Skynyrd in Niagara Falls. With just one member left. They sounded like Leonard Skynyrd. Great show. There you go. Justiny, I see Elton John. Without Elton, if Nigel and Davy Johnson is there. Rick Top 40 Hub. Chicago is another band that has very different members. Very true. Mo Blues 247. I would see Triumph if it was the original band. It's kind of hard with Triumph too. There's one of those bands. I would never see them. And anyone who knows this channel know we've interviewed Rick Emmett 8 times. Maybe 9. The last time I interviewed Rick Emmett, lead singer of Triumph, lead guitarist, we talked for over 2.5 hours. And I've known Rick, I don't know him, but when we talk, the interview part was 2.5 hours. The, hey, what's going on? What's new with you? Was like a half an hour, which was nice. You know, it doesn't always happen. It's very rare. The Dark Wizard, Grand Funk Railroad reunion again, I would go. Yeah, everyone would. Barb Olson, can't afford to go to concerts anymore. There you go. Fit to be tie-dyed. Saw the Eagles in Vancouver the year before Fry died. They were seeing. I saw Don Henley twice. I've never seen the Eagles. There you go. Scarecrow Band. What works? Well, sometimes if other famous people fill in. Yeah, I agree with that. Paul Blair. Well, Vince Gill and the Eagles. Paul Blair. It's olfartdom, perhaps. JMM. Hi, John. This may be a stupid question, but do you think James Young and Tommy Shaw will ever change their minds about Dennis DeYoung? No, I don't think so. No. The Dark Wizard Room. Styx. And I've interviewed Dennis DeYoung too on this channel. The Dark Wizard. Styx, I would make exceptions to go. I think they put on a good show. Justiny. I heard they were selling Taylor Swift tickets at $160,000. Bob Reed. Hey, Bob. Bob's a good radio guy from Bell Media. Hey, Bob, thanks for coming on. Is the current BTO tour BTO? It's Randy's long-standing band. It's true. It's not BTO. I mean, Blair Thornton gave his blessing. He was one of the guitarists. C.F. Turner, Fred Turner gave his blessing. And the Backman Boys are dead. The other Backman Boys. So I thought Blair Thornton would come back, but I'm not sure what he's been up to. Look up a picture of Blair Thornton of BTO. You can't find a current picture. I don't know what he's been up to. Paul Blair, I'm going to see the 533rd concert this weekend, the Mavericks. Oh, what a crying shame. I love the Mavericks. McMental music lover, you must know. Record hound, having grown up hearing Gowan's hits in the 80s, I did go see Styx show. Oh yeah, I like Lawrence Gowan. McMental, Joey C, McGraw Y'all, John, hope you get a chance to see Jeffrey Morgan on your show. I think it would be a great interview. Scarecrow Bands, you've seen over 500 shows. Okay, guys, I got to wrap it up. Again, if you ever want to donate to the channel, we have a PayPal link in the description. In the last few weeks, did you save my life in the last few weeks? Because, like I said, income on YouTube has been insane. A lot of people have been quitting YouTube. We're not going to quit YouTube. I mean, we would if we had to, if the income would go down even further than it has already. But luckily we have low overhead. Our home has low overhead. But if you ever want to donate to the channel, we do buy new equipment with it. And we're in need of some new equipment right now. We're buying a new 4K camera, lots of stuff. But you don't have to. Times are hard. That's fine. But if you ever want to, there is a PayPal link in the description. You can join our Patreon, get early access to our videos. You can also buy a t-shirt. We have hats. The hats are really nice. Or a different type of t-shirt if you want. And but subscribe to our channel. And the links to our other channels are also in the description. Subscribe to our channel, like our videos, share them on social media. We always like when you do that, to the groups where these videos might belong. And, a comment on them too. We appreciate all your comments. So thanks for the catch-up, someone says. The Dark Wizard Room. Thanks, John, for the catch-up. See you later. Thanks, John. Hello to Shannon. Northern Grace, she'll be on real soon, but this room is freezing cold. And I don't want to even give Shannon some Max Werner, the lead singer of Kayak, passed away. A lot of you might not know Max, but Max was one of my favorite singers of all time. And Tom Scherpenziel, who is the owner of Kayak, was always the leader of Kayak, just made an announcement. So I may either come in a little later on today and do a little tribute to him, because I love Max Werner so much. Oh my God. Royal Bed Bouncer by Kayak's one of the all-time favorite albums. If you have a streaming service, check it out. Little proggy, good stuff. Anyway, take good care of yourself. I love you guys. Thanks for being on there. John Bowden, Rock History Music.